Good evening, Roseville, and on behalf of commissioners and staff, I'd like to welcome you to the Transportation Commission for the September 20th, 2022. If everyone could please take this time to put your personal electronic devices on silent, and anyone who wants to follow along on an agenda, they're available there at the end of the staff table, and for all of you watching online, all of the documents are available on the website for the city's Transportation Commission. Anyone planning to speak at tonight's meeting, please complete a blue speaker card and return them to the staff table. Lainey, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Lasrica?
Here.
Commissioner Festerson?
Here.
Commissioner Groff?
Here.
Commissioner Husking?
Present.
Commissioner Eisenhower?
Here.
Commissioner Probst?
Here.
Chair Short?
Here.
And Commissioner Radford, absent excused.
Thank you. Commissioner Eisenhower, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move into our public comment period. This is a time for anyone to address something on our agenda, something that is not on tonight's agenda, but that is under the purview of the Transportation Commission. I'd ask any speakers to limit their comments to 3 minutes. With certain exceptions, the Brown Act doesn't permit us to discuss or take action on any items not listed on the agenda. And I'd ask any speakers to please state their name for the record. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to item 5. This is the approval of the July 19th, 2022 minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion Eisenhower, second Groff. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain. I wasn't here.
Commissioner Husking abstains.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 6. This is the Measure C informational presentation. Can we please have the presentation?
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Short, members of the Transportation Commission. My name is Megan Scheid, and I'm your Deputy City Manager at the City of Roseville. And I'm here to give you an update and some information on Measure C, which is going to be on the November ballot. I'm speaking to only select commissions that would, whose services that you oversee would potentially benefit from such a measure if it was passed by voters. So I'm giving you some information so you have it in your roles as public officials. So generally overall, the upcoming elections on November 8th, there's new council district boundaries, 5 new council district areas. This is the first election that all 5, the remaining 2 districts will be elected by district instead of at large. And then voters will also have the opportunity to vote on this hotel tax measure. So we have several ways that you can find information about where your district is, about the election, and about Measure C, all on our website. So the hotel and lodging tax measure aligns with the council's strategic plan priorities, specifically the 4 of the 9 priorities the council has, which are to remain fiscally responsible in a changing world, which includes finding new sources of revenue, keeping our expenses down. I'll talk about that in a second. Maintaining a safe and healthy community. Revenue from this would go towards that. Delivering exceptional city services and investing in well-planned infrastructure and growth, which this revenue all would support. With a fiscal responsibility idea in mind, specifically, the city addresses our fiscal responsibility by controlling expenses. It's really a 3-stooled bench, if you will, controlling expenses, aligning our fees with our services, and also diversifying our revenue streams. So all of these we're always looking at. I would say there is never a point where we said we've done enough with controlling our expenses and we don't need to worry about any of these. We're always kind of looking at that dashboard and looking at opportunities there. So we've reached the some of the other priorities that we're focused on are reaching our economic stabilization and emergency reserves funding goals. So we want to maintain city services during the next recession. We don't say if, just when. It's cyclical. Implementing our operational efficiencies, including how we use technology to reduce costs. And we also look for ways to reduce our organization in lower priority areas. And we use a lot of information from our Engage Roseville effort that we did a couple years ago in 2017 and 18, and also the National Community Survey, which helps us identify priority areas. And focusing on service and amenities, with our investment in sports tourism, our capital improvement projects, and business and economic growth, demand for overnight stays in the city has been growing. And our demand on city services has been growing along with the demand for overnight stays. The visitors in our cities use public safety services, streets, trails, parks, and recreation facilities. And one of the ways that visitors help fund the services they receive is through the hotel tax. Measure C is part of that focus. So adoption of Measure C, this is what it would do and what voters will be deciding in November. Measure C would increase the hotel tax, if passed, from 6% to 10%. And that 4% difference would add about $5 to the cost of a $125 room night. It would generate $2.7 to $3 million annually for the general fund, and that would be used to help provide services and amenities to visitors and residents alike. The tax is only paid by people who are staying in hotels or short-term rentals in Roseville city limits. And the revenues would stay in Roseville. They can't be taken by the state or the federal government. So that's the nitty-gritty. Now, if you've probably seen a ballot measure language before. This is one sentence. It's a question, and it is so there are very specific laws that govern how ballot measure language has to be written, and with word counts. So this is why this is written this way. It's not very conversational, but this is what voters will be looking at on the ballot, that local funding that can't be taken by the state for City of Roseville services, with an outline of those services, which I'll be talking about in a second, and asking the voters if the measure should be increased from 6% set in 1975 to 10%, providing an estimated additional $3 million annually with independent audits until ended by voters. That's what the measure states. So we took a look, and we've also been asked about how Roseville's hotel tax compares to the region. So here is a color-coded map, which goes with the next slide in a second. But this is, you'll see Roseville with the red dot right in the center of that 6-county region. And we're going to give you an overview of where all the cities and all the counties line up in terms of their hotel tax in the next slide. So Roseville has the lowest. It's the only city that's at 6%. Some of these other cities are planning to put hotel tax measures on their November ballot, we've heard, mostly to go to from 8 to 10% is what we've heard. Roseville's going right in the middle of the pack is what the Measure C addresses. If that's approved, Roseville would be in that 10% column. And that's where that stands. So we are the lowest in the region. We're also the oldest. Everybody else has updated their tax since 1975. In that time, the number of hotels in Roseville has increased from 4 to 17 that we have right now. And also the demand on city services has increased. So we've also been asked what tax rates are in other cities that residents from Roseville visit, and just ranging from where some popular youth sports tournaments are to vacation destinations where, there's nonstop flights from here. So this gives you an idea of where other cities are at. And the Measure C is looking at it, contemplating 10%. And so another question is, how would additional funding be used? Some of that is outlined in the measure itself. Because this is a general tax measure, the city is able to use revenues for any general unrestricted municipal purpose. And so this means that we can't be very, very specific about that, because that would be a specific tax measure, and that's a different threshold for the voters. So we have to remain broad in this, and this will be contemplated by the City Council every year as it sets its budget. But these are some of the types of services that this would be used for. Essential services, emergency public safety services, neighborhood police patrols. We would address blight with that funding, maintain our amenities and other general government services. Specifically, in the next slide, or just kind of drilling down a little bit, we wanted to share what investments the city is currently making related to tourism. And sports tourism is one of the City Council's major focus areas. So they do their strategic plan workshop each year. And this, focusing on sports tourism marketing and also infrastructure has been a major priority for many years. And just last month, the $40 million city-owned Longfield Sports Complex got approval to move forward. It's going to begin construction in 2023, and that's out in the west side of town. Many of you may be familiar with the other kind of youth sports infrastructure that we have here. We have the grounds, which opened at the beginning of 2020. My daughter went to the first volleyball tournament there. So nice that we didn't have to travel. But basketball, volleyball, conventions and conferences all taking place at the grounds. Softball complex that attracts national teams and also from Canada every summer. The swimming complex attracts youth from all over Northern California to swim at our Olympic-sized pool. We've also been asked for an update on Measure B funds, because people who kind of follow what's happening with city budget and with city services, and also the outreach on priorities, would remember Measure B. And that was approved by voters in 2018. The city only brought that to the voters after 10 years of budget cuts and 2 years of public outreach. So it had gotten to the point where there weren't any more cuts that could be made that weren't going to be very, very visible to the public. So we wanted to hear from the public what those priorities were as we made those cuts. With that outreach, we learned that our residents would rather have us look for additional sources of revenue to maintain services, and also to move forward on some areas that we did, which I'll outline here. So Measure B was a half-cent local sales tax and use tax measure, and it has definitely helped stabilize the general fund services, especially as we were, the world experienced COVID the following year after this was approved, which has really helped us weather future downturns, but also helped us move forward on some key things on the next slide. And actually, it's going to be the one after this, but there's a local sales tax oversight committee that monitors through an annual report, and it meets to talk about how those funds have been spent. And on the next slide, we have an overview. So three-pronged. First, maintaining essential services. This is a summary of the kinds of things that Measure B helped us maintain. So we wanted to kind of stop the cuts with the funding that was potentially coming that fiscal year. And this is what we've been able to do with those: unsheltered camp cleanups, police and fire services, an additional dispatcher, job creation and business recruitment initiatives. If you follow some of our social media or communications channels, you'll recognize a lot of these things. In addition, on the next slide, we restored services. So these had been reduced prior to Measure B. We were able to bring these back: library hours, 4th of July fireworks, fire training, goat grazing, park maintenance standards. So like instead of, we increased the mowing frequency, fertilization, those kinds of things. And you may say, well, those aren't huge cuts. Well, I think that was the point. We tried to minimize the effect to the public before we had to make really big cuts. And then we went out with a big, extensive outreach effort to find out what the priorities were. So before it got even worse, we were asking. We had already made cuts to employee compensation, though, so that was definitely something that was felt. And then in the next one, we were able to add services. So we added a new police beat in West Roseville, additional police traffic officer, the maintenance for 3 citywide parks. So we had the funding to finish completion of those parks, but we didn't have the funding for the maintenance services, so that allowed us to do that. The fiscal health investments, such as the Economic Stabilization Fund, and it also helped us pay down our CalPERS pension obligation. So that allowed us to preserve some capacity for future needs and also for future economic downturns too. And that's the conclusion of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Megan. Let's open it to public comment. Is there anyone for public comment on this item? Not seeing any. We'll close public comment and we'll come up to the panel. Any questions or comments? Start on this side.
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
So with this increase in tax for the hotel revenue, is any of it going to go also towards the program that California has to help homeless into hotels that are becoming a blight on the city and revamping them to be more low income to no income housing?
The project Home Key,
Yes.
I think is the one you're referring to. That's a state program, but this funding would be available to be put towards other homeless services. And there's a lot that we do, from cleanup to our social services unit run through our police department. So all of those are on the table.
Okay. And then you mentioned that it could potentially go towards helping us secure like a rainy day fund or an emergency reserve goal. Mm-hmm. Do you know where that goal stands today and how much we are below that goal?
I know that we are very close to that goal, and the big boost to that was the passage of Measure B. So that significantly helped. The council in 2014 or 16 decided to establish those reserve funds by policy, because we didn't have those before. We had a strategic improvement fund, but we established an emergency reserves fund and then an economic stabilization fund. And Measure B has significantly helped fund. I don't know the percentage of that, though, off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I could get that information to you from our CFO.
Might be great just so the public knows how close we are to obtaining goals that would help the city.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes,
I appreciate
definitely.
your
Yeah,
effort.
thanks for your question.
I'd like to thank you for coming today and explaining this to us. It helps us when we're out and about, and people come up to us and they have questions, and so thank you for taking the time and coming to us and explaining this to us. And just like always, Roseville is we're fiscally smart, and we show it, and I appreciate you helping us with the measures that you're bringing forward.
Great,
For the
thank you so
necessity
much.
of our sustainability.
Right, thank you.
I know nobody likes new taxes, but what's the general feel of people that come into town? Really and truly, I've heard, why doesn't Roseville charge more? I mean, honest to gosh, somebody said, why don't they charge more? I don't think people are going to complain, do you?
Am I allowed to answer that? I don't think so.
I think it's more.
I don't think so. When people get their hotel bills, that hasn't. I've actually read a lot of studies that have been done that people don't base decisions on where to stay based on the hotel tax. And if you look at the cost of gas, and there really aren't places to stay that are. I mean, if they wanted to stay in some place that had an 8% tax, they would have to make the determination if it was worth the extra distance.
Yeah, through the years, I've heard people say, Roseville is the most reasonable, but we get so many more services. And like I said, nobody wants taxes, but that's what I've heard, so I think it's fair.
Thank you for your comment.
No, I want to say thank you, Megan, for a great presentation, especially getting into the granularity of what our neighbors are charging. I think that's always a good thing to know. And I just got to say, maybe it's a question for the local government trivia people, but this has to be the longest running tax in California that hasn't been raised, 1975. It's almost a shame we're losing it. But
We should actually look into that, Jason.
yeah. But that being said, I think it's the more local government, the better. And just driving around on Saturday, I see so much of the sports tourism, which is a huge economic driver. I see those folks out and about using our infrastructure and resources. So I'm glad that while we have to increase it, it's still very reasonable compared to our neighbors. And I think it's proactive, and I'm glad to see it. And thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Just a quick question about some of the blight that might be occurring around some of the hotels. Not necessarily the ones that are brand new or right off the freeway, but is there any thoughts of requiring some of the owners to be a little bit more mindful of their properties in relation to now this is going to go up and certain expectations are had with their properties? And is there any plans of conversation with the owners to
I think that
bring these things up?
not necessarily in relation to this measure, but the city staff has been working with owners where we've identified a lot of calls for service to our police department in particular. And we've been doing that regardless of what happens with this measure. That's something that's very important to our community in particular.
Yeah, I know it's not directly related, but the correlation could be made as a perspective or an idea. When people do pay for the hotels, they see the increase in the bottom line of their prices, but maybe not necessarily what they perceive as a increase in amenities or the betterment of the property. So just a thought, just a perspective that some people might have. If they see prices go up, they don't necessarily break it down in their mind. They just know that prices are going up, and they might expect a little bit difference in the properties.
Yeah, and I think that would be, just for clarity, this goes to the provision of city services. So what the improvements that property owners make, that would be on them, but the city does work with them for code enforcement complaints, for calls for service, public safety issues. And so that's the kind of services that this would be funding too.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't have any comments, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And if I can just editorialize for just a moment, I was happy to see Measure B pass, but I think that my concern with it was, even at the time we knew that it was taxing something that kind of had diminishing returns. Sales tax, people were buying more online. We already knew that it wouldn't be as effective later on as it would be the day it passed. And I think what's intelligent about Measure C is we are looking to increase revenues using something that the city is investing in, hoping to grow. I mean, you said up to $3 million, but that's, I assume, for whatever is planned now. But if another hotel were to come online, and as the city continues to invest in sports and conference tourism, that number theoretically could grow even higher. So I think that's an intelligent way to go about things. So again, thank you for that informational presentation.
Great. Thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to address you on this.
All right, that was an information item, nothing for us to vote on. So let's move on to item 6.2, Title VI. I don't know, staff, can we have your presentation?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Short and members of the Commission. My name is Allison Winter, Alternative Transportation Analyst, and I'm here to present information on the Title VI program. Title VI refers to Section 601 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that states no person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And the Federal Transit Administration is responsible for ensuring that its funding recipients fully comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And the City of Roseville, which operates Roseville Transit, is a recipient through FTA of federal funds. As such, Roseville Transit is required by FTA to prepare a Title VI program. The program is reviewed and adopted by the City Council and submitted to FTA every 3 years. Title VI programs are prepared in accordance with the current FTA circular. A brief overview of the required program elements listed here will be covered in the following slides. Although the Public Participation Plan and the Language Assistance Plan are separate plans, they are typically included in the Title VI program document in order to adopt a document that meets FTA requirements. FTA requires that a Title VI notice to the public must be displayed to inform customers of their rights under Title VI. Roseville's notice to the public is available on the city's website, which is available in multiple languages. The notice is also published in Roseville Transit's Title VI brochure and in service guides, both available in English and Spanish. These materials can be found on the buses, in the Alternative Transportation Office, and online. The complaint procedures are posted online and in the Title VI brochures and service guides. Complaint forms can be found online and in the printed copies of the Title VI brochures. Per FTA requirements, Title VI complaints may be submitted to the City of Roseville or to the FTA Office of Civil Rights. Roseville's Title VI program describes the internal review process and documentation of any investigations, lawsuits, or complaints. Roseville Transit does not have any ongoing Title VI complaints or lawsuits. In the past 2 Title VI program updates, which cover a 3-year period, Roseville Transit addressed approximately 2 to 3 customer service inquiries. In the current update, which covers 2019 through the present, no inquiries have been received. The Public Participation Plan provides guidance for public involvement plans for projects or activities to be conducted by the city when using FTA funds. The goals of the Public Participation Plan are to provide an open and visible decision-making process so all members of the public have equal access, to seek out and consider the viewpoints of minorities, low-income populations, persons with limited English proficiency, and other community groups. Offer opportunities to the public to be involved in the identification of impacts of proposed decisions and raise the level of community participation. In this update, we added virtual meetings with call-in numbers as an option. The Language Assistance Plan is provided to address the city's obligation to meet the needs of individuals that have been identified as limited English proficient, or LEP, within the city of Roseville. An LEP person is defined as a person for whom English is not their primary language, and who have a limited ability to speak, understand, read, or write English. It includes people who reported to the U.S. Census Bureau that they do not speak English well or do not speak English at all. To determine the extent in which materials need to be translated to other languages, a 4-factor analysis is used. This process looks at the number and proportion of LEP persons in the transit service area, the frequency of interaction with LEP populations, the nature of services and resources available. The analysis for this update determined that Spanish speakers continue to make up the highest percentage of the LEP population in Roseville. As a result, Roseville Transit will continue to provide materials and notices in Spanish. To meet FTA requirements, the program was updated to add a notice to LEP persons of the availability of language assistance. And on behalf of the City of Lincoln, the City of Roseville secured federal funding for their construction of a bus barn, which was completed in 2011. The City of Lincoln partners with Placer County Transit to operate 3 local fixed routes and 1 dial-a-ride paratransit within its boundaries. To maintain FTA compliance, Roseville's alternative transportation staff conducts periodic desk review of Lincoln's materials and website, receives updates of Lincoln's program modifications through the Transportation Operators Working Group meetings, and conducts a triennial site visit. The construction equity analysis is an FTA requirement when FTA funds are used to construct or expand a facility, such as a vehicle storage facility, maintenance facility hub, or operations center. The guiding principles of the analysis are to avoid, minimize, or mitigate disproportionately high and adverse human health and environmental effects, including social and environmental effects on minority populations and low-income populations. To ensure the full and fair participation by all potentially affected communities in the transportation decision-making process, and to prevent the denial of, reduction in, or significant delay in the receipt of benefits by minority and low-income populations. And during the past 3 years, Roseville Transit has not constructed a facility with FTA funds. The service standards and policies are listed in the Title VI program to address how service is distributed across the transit system within its service area. These standards and policies are identified in Roseville's Short-Range Transit Plan and the Roseville Transit Service Policies. The Title VI program describes how these plans and policies are developed through an inclusive public participation process designed to ensure that service design and operations do not result in discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin. The Short-Range Transit Plan, adopted in 2019, included a series of outreach strategies designed to ensure equal and equitable opportunity to participate. And this update includes a vehicle assignment policy to meet FTA requirements. The vehicle assignment policy states that Roseville Transit assigns vehicles based on the type of service, capacity, and vehicle mileage. Local fixed routes are assigned 30 or 35-foot buses. Commuter routes are assigned 40-foot buses. Paratransit and dial-a-ride service, which require tight turns on driveways, are operated with 26-foot cutaway vehicles. Occasionally, when necessary due to vehicle maintenance, vehicle types may be assigned to an alternate service if feasible. And once Roseville Transit begins operating zero-emission buses, or ZEBs, ZEBs will be assigned based on the operating characteristics of the route. Assignments for ZEBs will take into consideration the state of the charge of the battery and charge needed to complete the route. And a public involvement plan was developed for the Title VI program to seek out the viewpoint of the general public as well as minority, low-income, and limited English populations. The public involvement strategies used to engage the public in this program include a Transportation Commission public hearing and an upcoming City Council meeting. The following public participation methods have been used for this Title VI update. We posted on the city's website Roseville Transit email and text message notifications through eNotify, social media posts, the notice of public hearing, both in English and Spanish. We posted the meeting agendas for the Transportation Commission and City Council, and posting notices on Roseville Transit Alternative Transportation Division office and on the onboard bus kiosks. And as of 5 p.m. today, Alternative Transportation staff has not received any public comment on the Title VI program update. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Now open public comment. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back up here. We'll start on this side this time. Any comments or questions for staff?
Can you come back to me,
Sure.
please?
Just a compliment, actually, to all the staff and the drivers and everybody else who are the faces of our transportation system. I'd just like to be able to see zeros when it comes to complaints. And not only that, there might be some perceptions about some of the issues that could happen or have happened, like some of the complaints that were, years ago, but there's not even any perceptions of any issues that could be complained about. So that's nice to see. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for your presentation. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
I second that. Thank you for your presentation. It was really good. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple of questions I have for you. Within your plan here, you have a section that entails how the city safely and maintains and replace your buses throughout, or your vehicles throughout the time. And the average fleet should not exceed more than 6 years. Does the city track how they dispose of the vehicles that eclipse the life expectancy? And do they ensure that they are adequately recycled into or used in a second life that the city can verify?
Yeah, I can handle that. So we do track our buses. We have a transit asset management plan that we do every year, which tracks the age of the bus, the mileage. And then as the replacement buses come in, and we then put them out to auction to sell them basically to the highest bidder. And then if the buses were, if we use federal money to purchase them, then any amount over $5,000, a percentage of that goes back to the federal government, or we can propose that it goes back into something that we would use for transit-related purposes. So we do track it, but eventually they do get sold at an auction, and there's a whole process that we use to dispose of the vehicles at that point.
Okay. And then this kind of is a two-part question, but I appreciate the maps that you provided. It's very helpful, a lot of information based on kind of where City of Roseville Transit services versus kind of where the need is, right? And these maps are very helpful. Can you speak to the maps and were they updated to represent the proposed change that we experienced in the last meeting, where we were going to modify, I believe, routes G and E, if I were correct?
Correct.
Because now looking at these, maps and trying to think back to that last meeting where those, page 30, if you were looking in your PDF that you provided us, and 26. So those are the two that I'm kind of looking at, because those are the two major ones that I have when we're looking at modifying bus routes, which isn't necessarily what's in this plan, but when we're modifying bus routes for the zero vehicle household density and the low income, I'm just thinking of lower east Roseville. If we took into consideration these maps while proposing those changes to the routes from the previous meeting that we held.
I don't think we took that into consideration for the EG modification. That the focus there was just re-implementing the service that we suspended due to COVID. And then at that point, we were also trying to focus on attracting more ridership from the existing route by extending it to Sierra College through the Galleria. So I don't think we went into that type of analysis as much as we did trying to focus on College and Galleria to attract more riders.
Okay. I don't know if that's finalized or not, but it might be a good, since the maps are published now, it might be a good overlap to have the two staff come together and see if there's some kind of overlap. I'm assuming most of it is still providing service to these areas. I just don't have a picture memory of where G and E or the proposed route would be at this point, but I'm assuming it still serves MIDU, which is the regional park that I'm noticing the most with the zero vehicle and low income. So.
Yeah, the F and C did not change there when it got reinstated. It was just the G that was eliminated and replaced with the E.
E, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure, and I just wanted to verify. Thank you.
And I would add that the maps I think you're referring to are from the short range transit plan.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question about the public involvement strategies. So if someone were to come forward about a question, say on social media, perhaps Instagram, would they just DM this, the Instagram, or will they be sent to a portal so all the questions could be in one place at one time and addressed there? Or will each individual comment be addressed like through email or DM?
I believe the city public information officer monitors those comments and would refer them to us if we received any comments through those portals.
That's what I was wondering. I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions or comments? I have none. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to recommend to the City Council that they adopt the City of Roseville Title VI Program, Public Participation Plan, or PPP, and Language Assistance Plan, or LAP. Moved by Husking, seconded by Festerson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 6.3, the Alternative Transportation Program Update.
Good evening, Commissioner Short and Commissioners. I'm here this evening to speak about 2 active transportation programs that Alternative Transportation Division is bringing to the community in the coming weeks. The first one is our popular Bike Fest. For 29 years, our Pedal Safe Committee, led by the Alternative Transportation Division, has been sharing bicycle education and free helmets to the community through our Bike Fest event. After a couple of years of drive-through events, although very successful during COVID, we are excited to be back and in person in our regular festival format. The event will be Saturday, October the 8th, from 9 to noon, right here in our town square. And although this event is geared towards children, all ages are welcome. We expect about 500 people. Over 130 volunteers from community groups, schools, bike clubs, and bike shops and other city departments help man stations. Among the favorites always being the safety presentation with the watermelon drop, helmet fitting, having bicycles checked out by trained bicycle mechanics, and the 2 obstacle courses. There'll also be other entertainment, free bicycle-related giveaways, and most importantly, free helmets to all children and adults who need one. Events like this help our city to maintain our status as a bicycle-friendly community. It's really a great event, and if you can, it's great to be there. The second event I'd like to speak about this evening is the National Walk to School Day, which will be Wednesday, October 12th in the morning before school. There's so many benefits to walking to school. It's good for your health. It helps students with concentration. It helps reduce traffic around the schools, and it's great for the environment. That's why the Alternative Transportation Division wholeheartedly supports this event every year by promoting it to local elementary and middle schools. Schools can choose how they want to celebrate this day, and we are there to assist them with manpower and giveaways. Some schools highlight the day with goodies that they hand out to students. Other schools choose to do walking routes led by leaders. And then other schools have a big celebration with a safety assembly at the school before school. If there are any commissioners who would like to help on this special day by walking a route or by handing out goodies, you can just let me know and I'll put you in touch with the right person. Walk to School Day is a part of the National Safe Routes to School program, of which the City of Roseville is a partner through our Alternative Transportation Division. And that's it for my presentation. Do you have any questions about these 2 events?
Let me start by opening it up to the public and see if there's any questions or comments. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and go back to this side first.
Yeah, just one question for you. I don't know what the boards say right now, but is it possible that we can put Bike Fest up on the changeable message board signs? I know I get a lot of city information that way, and it's very useful, especially because they're on key routes that a lot of City of Roseville residents take on a daily basis. Have you thought about putting out the message that way, especially since it's in a short notice and people can start planning for it either a week or 2 prior?
I think that's already something that's been discussed. You'll also see some big banners that we're going to put out on the overhead bridges over here. We've got those ordered. Those are scheduled to go up pretty soon. And at some of our regional parks, the big banners will just be displayed so people will know about the event.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate the effort.
Well, this is, excuse me, choking still. This is one of my favorite events that the city of Roseville has continually stepped up and done a great job. 29 years? It's crazy. And I can remember our very first one when we were doing the helmet checks, streets, built us some blocks to stand on so we wouldn't be bending over. But not only is it this division, but it's all divisions of the city that have come together for this event. And I just want you to know that I appreciate it. I guess as a cyclist, many of us are, and it's near and dear to our hearts. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Such a great program. So many people benefit from it. Thank you.
Great program and a great presentation, and I always look forward to it. Thank you.
No comments.
I don't have any comments, but I'd like to volunteer.
Perfect. I'll put you in touch with the right person.
Perfect.
I'd also be interested. I walk my kids to school almost every morning, so would love to help out or participate. Just make sure that staff is aware that due to changes in state law, our elementary and middle schools now start at 7:45 in the morning, so it's going to be an early start.
We're aware of that.
Me
With
too.
our crossing guard program.
Very aware.
I'd like to say also your enthusiasm is contagious.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Suzanne. All right. Let's move on to, I know we have a staff report, so why don't we start with that? Is that you, Ed?
Yes.
All right.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Short and members of the commission, this evening I'd like to provide the commission some good news regarding a recent Roseville Transit grant application. So as for some background, on May 18th of this year, the City Council approved a resolution authorizing staff to seek Federal Transit Administration grant funding to replace Roseville's older diesel commuter buses and the gas-powered dial-a-ride buses, the smaller buses, and replace them with electric buses. The grant funding staff was seeking was from an extremely competitive program that is typically oversubscribed, and Roseville Transit has had very limited success in past efforts. For fiscal year 22, there was $1.7 billion in federal funding available nationwide for this program, which is significantly more than what was available in previous years. So with that in mind, staff was optimistic that we would have some level of success with our application, and at the very least, we get some type of partial funding. So staff went ahead and submitted a grant request in the amount of $13.6 million to fund 7 electric commuter buses and 8 dial-a-ride buses. Staff also proposed funding for workforce development, which was a requirement of the grant application, and also requested funding for the necessary charging equipment and construction costs to charge the fleet of new buses. Well, last month, Roseville was notified by the Federal Transit Administration that it received the full asking amount of $13.6 million to fully fund our grant request. This is the largest grant Roseville Transit has ever received, and needless to say, we're extremely happy with the outcome. FTA reported, or the Federal Transit Administration reported, that although there was $1.7 billion available, they received $7.7 billion in requests.
Wow.
So that means that $6 billion in requests were denied. Additionally, over 500 grant applications were received, and Roseville was one of only 150 that were accepted. No other transit agencies in the Sacramento region received any funding. So we realize we are extremely fortunate and grateful that our project was accepted. So as part of the application process, Roseville partnered with Proterra, which is a leading producer of zero-emission electric buses, and also partnered with Optimal EV, which is the market leader in the electric low-floor cutaway buses, the smaller buses. It's worth noting that Proterra was extremely helpful in the development of our grant application and deserves some credit for this award. So with the funding secured for these 15 buses, it will bring the total of 29 electric buses or vans that Roseville Transit has secured funding on and are either currently being built or in the process of being designed. This is well over half our existing fleet and keeps us on the path to convert our entire fleet to electric buses within the next 7 years. So I just wanted to kind of brag a little bit about the department.
Congratulations
So,
to you and your
Thank you.
staff. That is exciting news.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone on the commission have a report to make?
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know in the city of Roseville and also on the Transportation Commission, I am going to be moving by the end of this month. So this will be my last Transportation Commission meeting. My time here has been great. I have been able to learn a lot more about this lovely city. And it will be just a short term that I plan on being gone from the city, and I will be back. But this will be my last meeting, and I just want to thank you all for the ability to participate in such a great commission and to get to know the staff, especially in the transportation realm, which has a near and dear spot to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Eisenhower. Sorry to be losing you. Any other commissioners have a report to make? Do you have one? I have just one. Just, wondering if this was a one-off or if, there was a reason. I'm sure everyone that is at the Roseville Parkway widening open house is watching us on their phones, but just curious as to why that happened to get scheduled at the same time as this commission. I'd like to, have a little bit more synergy between those types of, I might have wanted to participate in that. I'm sure that's where Commissioner Doyle is, but just a note that when those types of things are happening, I'd like to be able to participate when we can.
Great.
Other than that, seeing no other further comments, we are adjourned. Thank you.